Hello, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my review of Hellboy 2019. So, Hellboy 2019 is directed by Neil Marshall and stars David Harbour, Neelam Novich, Ian McShane, Sasha Lane, and Stephen Graham. So, the story is about Blood Queen who wants revenge for what King Arthur did to her, and Hellboy has to make this big decision whether to join her or stop her from destroying the world. So for positives, David Harbour does do a really good job as Hellboy, as he does really feel like the character because of how he's acting, and it's just really showing the right emotions at the right time, and as well as really sounds like he wants to be in this role. So for the visuals, they were pretty good considering the budget, which kind of is surprising. If this was a high budget, it would look bad, but it was only $50 million, so for a budget that low, the visuals look pretty good for that. And the costume design for Hellboy is pretty good. It looks a lot like the costume from the comics, and it does do a good job at representing that pretty well. With that said, this movie does have a lot of negatives. The story is just very generic. It's another story where our main protagonist has to stop a villain from destroying the world. How many action movies have done that? It just feels very generic, and it's just nothing special. It's not even executed well because the structure is kind of a mess. Like the first act, it's just kind of like, okay, here's this long intro of King Arthur and killing Blood Queen, and then it kind of just shows a bunch of stuff about Hellboy's second act where he kind of gets betrayed and he has to go on this whole mission there, and then the third act is where he's fighting Blood Queen, and then that monster, the entire climax that really just does not work very well for what it is. And then that's on it. As well as the ending, just feels like it was just a bit stupid adding that ending. It was just, they should have just ended it a bit after that fight, but then they just go 6 months later and show that as the ending, and it just makes the movie longer than it should be, honestly. Pacing is a mess. It just feels like this movie is overlong. They do feel like it's padding the runtime a lot, like with the opening, that's much longer than it should be, as well as the ending, like that literally feels like they're padding runtime on, which makes the movie feel much longer than it should be, which is why I really don't like the way this movie is paced. The action scenes even are just nothing special. There aren't that much stakes to them, and it really just feels like it's just Hellboy fighting these monsters who end up having to beat them, and then he recovers and eats them back. That's just really nothing special of action, to be honest. Hellboy is just a poorly written character. His character is written as this kind of character who is abandoned from his father, and then he just really doesn't develop very well in this movie. He's really just feels the same from the start to the end. His character is just really bland and generic. He's just our typical protagonist who has to fight this the evil person from destroying the world. That's basically his entire character. That's all he really has to do, besides the making the big decision thing, which, when he makes a big decision, it just doesn't really make any sense, and he's a bit forced. He first makes the decision not to pull out the sword, which that feels like it's just padding runtime on, and then he ends up pulling out the sword in defiance. That decision just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, it's character development, I guess, but the development makes no sense because of the way his character was building up throughout the movie. For him, honestly, he's just a really bad father figure. I mean, he just doesn't really care for Hellboy, and it just kind of abandons him, and then at the end, he randomly says he never regrets it because he thought he'd be this kind of hero. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. It makes him like a really poorly written father figure, as he really just feels like he doesn't really care for his son at all, and it really just makes him poorly written. The characters alongside of Hellboy are just very generic, honestly. They have barely any character traits. I guess the Cheetah alongside of him did have one moment where he turned into a Cheetah and started fighting, but that honestly felt like it led to nowhere, in all honesty, and it just feels like his character was underdeveloped, as well as Alice was alongside of him as well feels very underdeveloped, as she doesn't really have that many character traits, and she's just alongside Hellboy because reasons, and Hellboy just has to protect her, kinda, and that's about her entire character. I mean, there's really nothing to her character. And Blood Queen is just a really generic villain. I mean, her motivation is that she wants revenge for what King Arthur did to her in the past, and so she wants to destroy the world. I mean, how many villains in action movies want to destroy the world? It has been done many times before, and it makes her look very generic, and her reasons to do it just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, she just wants revenge, which makes her generic, and then really nothing special. The acting besides David Harbour just feels really bad. I mean, Mila Jovovich really looks like she doesn't want to be there. I mean, she just doesn't look like she's trying, and it looks like she looks like she wants to go home, and all this means, and her delivery just doesn't feel like she wants to be there. I mean, that's just pretty bad acting. Ian McShane didn't even look confident. I mean, he's usually somewhat good in his roles, but here he just seemed like he didn't really want to be in this movie and wasn't very confident with his line delivery. Soundtrack's just really bad. I mean, each song just doesn't feel like it fits the moment, and it's not like one or two, it's like pretty much every single song. And that just kind of makes it seem like they weren't really trying with it, and probably could have put a song like that fits the moments better. Like, there's where it just feels completely out of place because of the songs in it. Cinematography is just terrible. I mean, they use the wrong camera angles, it feels like. Like, they use whiteouts when they should be using close-ups, it feels like, because it really just relies too much on whiteouts. And I really think that they could have easily fixed that by doing better camera angles for like close-ups or just honestly anything else. Because when the whiteout things that they use just are kind of overused and didn't really need to be in certain scenes. And as well as lighting, it was pretty bad in this as well, because you can't really see what's going on that much, which doesn't really help out the cinematography very much. So overall, Hellboy 2019 is a disaster and my least favorite movie to come out this year so far. And I'm going to give Hellboy 2019 a 1.5 out of 10. That was my review of Hellboy 2019. What are your thoughts on Hellboy 2019? Tell me in the comments below. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.